Okay, now what we're going to do is start getting into some of the settings in the back here. There's a lot in here to learn, so I'm going to try to keep it easy to follow, easy to understand. But there are going to be some things I'm not going to go over because you're not going to use them very often. So I'm just going to go over the settings that you will be using on a daily or weekly basis. So the first thing I want to talk about is titles. So if you notice this title, what that is called is an H1 title. In other words, it's called a heading. Okay? So an H1 title is usually you use it, or the only thing you usually use it for is the title of the recipe. Now, if you notice here, there's something, or there's a drop down, and you'll notice there's heading 1, heading 2, heading 3, heading 4, 5, and so on. Basically, heading 1, as indicated in this drop down, is the biggest heading you're going to have. So this heading here, this H1, is going to be the largest. If you look over here, I'm not sure what this is, but it's probably like an H3 or 4 or something like that. And you notice, see, they're both headings. This is a heading, right? It's a title, it's a heading, and this is a heading, but they're different sizes. So the way you would make that happen is by indicating what you want it to be. So for example, let's suppose this first sentence, I want that to be an H2, right? So sample recipe is H1. I want to make this a little larger. So what I would do is just highlight what I want to change and just simply come to the drop down, select H2, and you notice how it got bigger here. If I were to update this and refresh this page, it would get bigger. However, that looks a little big for me. So let's try H4. Now, that's perfect. You know what happened here? It's making it darker, which is bolder, right? Which is different than the rest of this, but I've made it a heading. And the purposes of that is, if we come back here and refresh, you'll see that you can actually use the heading to separate different sections. So let's suppose I'm going to come back to this. I'm going to highlight it and put it back to paragraph, which means it's going to make it the same size as this. These are called fonts, if you're not familiar, but it made it go back to the normal font, which is really just the normal setting. Now, let's suppose I'm writing a recipe, and let's say I have a little short introduction, and then let's say I want to write breakfast. And then under this may be about breakfast. But I don't want it the same size as the rest of the paragraph. So what I would do is highlight it, come over here, and pick H3. If I update that, and we come back to the home page and refresh, you'll notice breakfast. Now, oftentimes when you label something an H1, H2, H3, or H4, it's going to have its own styling. So if you notice, back here, it says breakfast in lowercase, but when you come over here, it's uppercase. That's because the H3 has a special styling to it. And I'm not going to go into that right now. You don't need to know it, but each one of these has its own styling. So you can make them different sizes, different types of fonts, different colors. You can pretty much, do that. But we'll go over that later on. For now, I just want you to know that you can label different sections. So if this is going to be, let's say, lunch, I would come back and go to H3 because it's just another section of the post. And then let's just say I'll take this, paste it in there, click update. And then if I refresh, you'll notice I have another section now with lunch. So you can use H2s or H3s or H4s, H5, H6s within the post to separate different sections. All right? Now, as we go through the course, we'll talk about, changing different things. But for now, I just wanted you guys to sort of understand how to use the H1, H2, H3, H4, H5, H6 tags. Now, I will say that you will very rarely use H1. H1s are used for the title, as I said, and it's very rare that you will make anything inside your post an H1. All right, so that's it for the headings. In the next video, we are going to talk about some of the other settings in here.